833-397-5594.
The views expressed on contacttalkradio.com are those of the guest hosts and callers, and not necessarily of this station, its management, or other advertisers.
This is contacttalkradio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio. Welcome to Life Mastery with Todd Allen, the talk radio show that dives into the science of higher consciousness. Join Todd and his guests weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific Time and learn how to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. Enjoy a survey of inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. It's all right here. Leading authors, speakers, coaches, entrepreneurs with stories and messages to support your well-being, let alone your most evocative dreams.
Hey, it's another groovy day, and many of you know that's because when I got up today, I decided I was going to make it that way. Welcome to Life Mastery Radio, the talk show that brings you great thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. And we have a really cool guest for the show today, but before we get started, let's just take a minute and consciously close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so, but let's just take a minute and just consciously connect to that which gives you power. What is it that you connect to, whether it's nature, it could be the doorknob that leads you to your sacred space, whatever that is, just consciously really connect, because that's going to be an important part of today's show. We're going to learn a little bit more with our guest, but maybe taking a couple deep breaths. I always like to let that breath out with a big ah, and just connect to that which gives me power, because I get great power from my source. There you go. I changed it up a little bit, Jackie. I know I haven't done it for a very long time. My co-host today, she's giggling. Hi, Jackie.
I know. I was thinking, what's Todd doing? He's forgetting some steps here.
Oh, trying to change it up. We didn't want to.
That's all right. It's okay.
So you created this vision. Oh my gosh. It was like, I want to say 5 or 6 months ago, but it's probably shorter than that.
Well, I got to tell you, when we had our guest, Linda Deer, on.
Linda Deer, right?
I think she was in May or April, something like that. And she was talking about getting in touch with our spirit guides and allowing them to guide us a little bit more. And based on the conversation we had with her that day, I started journaling. And in my journal, I would write down some things. As ideas came to me, I would write them down in my journal. And one day I had this huge inspirational session with my guides and I wrote down these 5 or 6 goals that I needed to accomplish. And one of them was to find my own space to offer the classes that I've been teaching to youth for about 3 or 4 years now. And it was very clear to me, and I could actually see the space in my head. I could see where things would be, what would be there, and how things would function while there. And I began to look for commercial space, but it wasn't coming real easily. I had an agent looking for me. Just wasn't feeling right. And when I was about to just say, well, maybe this isn't the time for it to happen, bam, something just out of the blue, total coincidence that a space was opened up to me before it even went on the market for rent. And I was able to go look at it and decide very quickly, yep, this is it. It's required some construction. So we've done lots of changes, and we've had to put in a new ceiling and carpeting and paint the walls and that kind of thing. But it's coming together, and I'm opening next week with my first classes in my new studio, my Speak, Feed, Lead studio in Redmond, Washington.
That is fascinating. It's even more fascinating because that's the first time that I've heard this story. And I'm glad that you shared that. No, really, I think that now I'm going to have to go back and listen to that Linda Deer show. No, I'm just, she is a fascinating woman. And, it's just fascinating for me to understand that you kind of step forward with that, because that's not something traditionally Jackie Bailey would have been open to, or maybe those kinds of ideas, but this was a huge step. Am I right?
It was a big step. It wasn't something that I hadn't kind of thought about at one point, but it was never very clear to me that this is what I absolutely needed to do.
Wow.
And until I wrote it down in my journal. And like I said, 4 or 5 things just came to my mind, and I had to list them all out and actually list how this was going to happen. It wasn't just, hey, there's an idea, which I have a lot of ideas, but it was very clear that this is what I needed to do, and these are the steps I needed to take to get there. And this was just one of those on the list. So there's some other ones coming up. but
more news at 11. Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
You know,
but this is really cool because it's not exactly what I envisioned, but it's really close to that vision I had as to where things would be. So,
you know, that's all part of creating the vision, is stepping forward to it, and then new opportunities. You know, you used a word called coincidence in these things all lining up, but it's more like the word you want to use, I think, is synchronicity. I think
that's
once
true.
you put the energy out to the universe, Spirit supplied you with the direction. And then, you know, one of the things that I think is really cool is if you really want to make God laugh, tell him what your plan is. Right?
Exactly.
But when you line up and come in congruence with what you're supposed to be doing and what Spirit thinks you're doing, oh my gosh, the miracles. And we're going to be talking a lot about miracles today. We have an amazing guest. I want to encourage people to go to Jackie Bailey's Facebook page. There are pictures of her new space.
Yay!
She just got some really cool desks yesterday.
Yep.
And it's just one day after the next, all these magical things are coming into fruition to make her dream come true. And it is so cool to watch. And now I know the rest of it, which is even cooler, because you know what, Jackie? That just makes, you know, hearing a story like that, it just makes it all worth it, for the reason that I show up every Tuesday and broadcast this show, because not only are you getting it, but I think others are getting it too.
Yeah, it's wonderful to talk to so many amazing people, and they open my mind to so many areas of my own connectedness or lack thereof. And it just makes a difference. And I hope that our audience feels the same way, that they get some inspiration every week from our show.
You are giving me goosebumps. I don't know where those are coming. They're coming from that blue place.
Yeah.
I want to remind our listeners that today's show page is at www.lifemasterradio.net. Anything that we talk about and link to our guests, the links are there. Our guest link is already there, and you can go and find out more. But I just want you to kick back and listen, because this woman is pretty amazing. You ready to start the show?
I am.
Here we go. Our guest today is Julie Renee, and it's actually Julie Renee Doering, and she is an expert meditation instructor. She shares the hidden secrets of regeneration and renewal through meditation and techniques using quantum energy. With her transformational, game-changing skills, she provides an integrated fast track for manifesting, holding, and growing abundance, health, beauty, and wealth. Julie Renee has been called the most gifted healer on the planet, and that was stated by CEO of Space founder Bernie Dorman and a miracle worker by the actress and media trainer Barbara Nevin. Julie Renee is the author of the groundbreaking book, Your Divine Human Blueprint. Her unique gift of healing defines the energies and science of cellular quantum mechanics. That's a mouthful, Julie. Welcome to the show. How are you today, my friend?
I'm great.
Great. Tony the Tiger. That's what Tony the Tiger says. So give us a little bit of backstory. You know, I am just fascinated by the way that you describe all of the things that you had to go through, which were some huge challenges.
Yeah.
Brought you to the point where you were at today.
Yeah, I literally survived the atomic bomb testing in the Nevada desert. I had 17 surgeries, multiple cancers. I died twice. I was in a wheelchair for a year, told I would never walk without unbearable pain and canes. I had 2 traumatic brain injuries. And through all of that, I was a very strong woman of faith. I believed that I was here for a reason. But and that last kind of year of suffering, I had this realization that I was promised the Garden of Eden and I was living in hell on earth. And I know some of you who are listening feel that way, that it's just been one difficult thing after another. And for me, I made a decision. I went into my garden, and it was a decision made out of, I believe something can change. I had when I was 33, I went and sat under the tree that Buddha became enlightened, the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya. And I thought, now Buddha was told by everyone that he could not become enlightened because he was the son of a wealthy king, he was a wealthy prince. And it was common knowledge back then that people of wealth could not become enlightened. And I had that same notion that I would just show up every day in my garden as best I could and pray and meditate, and I would get better. And if I wasn't going to get better, I said, God, take me or make me well. And I didn't want to die, so it was going to have to make me translate. It was going to have to float off because I didn't want to die. But it was so amazing. After a couple hours of prayer and meditation and chanting, I was watching in my mind's eye, and I was watching a master cell, a very, very sick cell in my body, going from its very sick state to its God state. And what that looked like was it was becoming this glowing blue pulsing orb. And it was overwhelming to me. I cried. I was happy crying. And it was a realization for me that not only was my spirit made of light and God, but my body was also. I had always had this biblical idea that my body was made out of clay. And I kind of was frustrated and rejected. But in that moment, I realized that my body had a miraculous system. It was made out of light. It was made out of God too. Everything was made out of that. And my body began to regenerate rapidly. So I was very sick at that point. Within 6 months, I was running 30 miles a week on a mountain trail. I was back dancing on stage with a rock and roll band. And the scientists and doctors were looking at me going, what is going on with you? Why are you getting better? It's like a miracle. In a 6-month period of time, I went from this ancient, when you're really sick for a long time, you look ancient, you look all wrinkly and gray, your aura is gray. And I was just a sparkly being of light showing up, looking 20 years younger. And so I began to define it. And I began to I took on some doctors and scientists. I had them apprentice with me for 1.5 years. And that forced me to figure out what was happening inside me. Not just magically it was happening, but the cell process, which we now call cellular neogenesis, how to activate it. What are the steps happening in the process, and how we can do it repeatedly over and over again with a good result every time.
Wow.
Well, let's just qualify something too, because it's my understanding, Julie, that you really don't have a scientific background.
I don't.
Yeah.
No.
And so this is the first I've heard that you actually consulted with doctors to help you understand, and then you develop this whole quantum theory understanding, and it really ties in to what scientists believe and understand today.
Yeah. They were pushing me, I'm very bright, obviously. and they were
bright
pushing
and
me,
shiny.
saying, you have to figure it out for us. And so they would come and train with me every 6 weeks. They'd spend 4 days with me, and we did it over 1.5 years. And I'd have to, in the 6-week period that I had in the middle, I'd have to map out a whole nother section of the ideas that we were exploring, which eventually ended up being Your Divine Human Blueprint, the big fat book that's 600 pages. And I was showing it to my friend Marcy Scheimoff. She's also a speaker and author.
Yeah, I've interviewed Marcy. She's cool too.
She's cool. She's a cool chick. She was annoyed with me. She was saying, she said to me, "You're stupid. Don't write a big book like that." And I had 17 more chapters mapped out, so it would have been like 1,100 pages or something like that. She said, "Stop doing that. Just publish that book, and then you can publish more books." So I've published 12 books.
I see that. Yeah.
Continue to research, and I like to write. But yes, the doctors came, and then I realized what was so interesting is that the doctors weren't going to be the ones who are going to get it out in the world, because they're restricted.
Right.
So I've had doctors in my training programs, and they love the information, but they can't do the activations in their practices unless they leave Western medicine and they open up an alternative practice, and then they can. So we've got a lot of doctor testimonials on the website of people who love the work, who've had the transformation, and they've left their practice to open up something alternative.
Yeah. Well,
have these doctors allowed you to work with some of their patients, though?
I work with a lot of, this is a very interesting thing. Those doctors that have studied with me, they know how to do some of the activations. And I think the other thing, though, is really amazing is people come in and they're sick or dying, and they tell their doctor about what they're doing with me. And their doctors always say, "Well, you're getting better, so keep doing it." And they, so we don't have any resistance. I'd put no resistance to Western medicine in our trainings. We do how to prepare for surgery, how to clear yourself after surgery. I've got trainings that are in harmony. So we don't say don't take your medicines, or we never say anything like that. And so there's no push against us from Western medicine. I know some people might think that we're in the woo-woo category, but I don't think we are,
right.
because the thing is so deeply mapped out and very clear. That I don't think so. We're not doing actually healings. We're actually doing quantum activation. So we're activating how the particles in the field are vibrating for you, so they're vibrating in a better circumstance for you. So we're not changing. We're not putting any foreign energy anywhere. We're just rearranging the particles to vibrate in the best possible circumstances for you.
Well, that's something I wanted to drill down into, because quantum mechanics is a big thought and idea, and it's very complicated. And I think you just delve on it to help people understand that this is, where do I want to go with it? This is on a cellular level, but it's a simple process, right? Am I getting that it's simple? And it's an inside job.
It's an inside job. Yeah, I think, well, I want to say that the basic processes are relatively simple. We do really deep, complex clearings for people, so that we're trying to get everything that is contributing to a problem. For example, dementia or Alzheimer's. We want to get everything that's contributing to that problem out of their field before we regenerate. So we do a kind of a complex clearing prior to the health activation. And then there's meditation that they do for like 6 months afterwards. Once a day, they'll do a half-an-hour meditation. We're really like trying to approach it in the best possible, to get the best possible results. So it's very simple, but also I typically am encouraging people to stay with me 4 or 5 years. If you believe in past lives, I don't know. I think we've got some free thinkers here that might. We're clearing all past lives, so
right.
we're not just clearing this lifetime. So a lot of times we'll see problems coming forth from ancient Lemuria or ancient Atlantis that continue to play out in somebody's field, body, or space. And so we're mapping that, and we're sorting out, is this a contributing factor to the illness they're experiencing or the problems they're experiencing in their wealth or their love life. And we're clearing those factors too.
Yeah.
So it's
Hey, Julie.
Deep shift. Mm-hmm.
I was just going to ask, for those listeners who have only dealt with Western medicine, they may not understand what clearing means.
Hmm.
Can you explain a little bit about what clearing is?
Yeah. It's setting an intention with the mind, and then using the hand. Maybe it's like this would be cleaning off the DNA, this hand movement. This one would be clearing energies that are in your space that are foreign energies. But what we're doing is we're taking I can show you. Is it all right to do a share and show you what it looks like?
If it works. Yeah. I don't know that we've ever done it.
I've set this one up for our ladies, let's see here, who are coming into a class, just following ours. So this is a clearing chart. We start with right permission and ability to fully in all aspects of my blueprint permanently with 100% great results to enjoy. And then this one is Gorgeous Goddess. So women are tightening and toning and becoming more youthful and beautiful. See, I have some typos in here, but this is what a clearing chart looks like. And we're clearing thousands of things, depends on what shows up. So that one's in pretty intensive chart there. And let me see, I'm gonna stop. There we go, now we're back. So that's what a clearing chart looks like. So we're setting an intention with the mind, we're making visual contact with the chart, and then we're doing a hand movement. That hand movement then is removing to zero. We're testing with muscle testing until we get the whole class to zero, that there's nothing left on the chart that's affecting them in that area. So that's what we're doing with clearing.
Okay.
And typically when somebody goes through a clearing, they feel wonderful.
Yeah.
So bright and uplifted. They usually have a lot more energy. Their mind is quiet. They might feel tingly and excited. So clearings yield a wonderful result where you might feel gray or a little bit tired or irritable when you start. It's completely clear after you've gone through it.
And you described this as a spiritual healing. So this is not like you're putting energy. I mean, you're actually working with that person's spirit in the healing process.
Well, this is a quantum activation. So we are working with the person's spirit. We're working with the divine human blueprint. The divine human blueprint is perception, which is ancient. Even before we were spirit, we had a field of knowing. That includes the intellect. So people simplistically said body, mind, spirit in the 60s and 70s, the hippies,
right?
But they were pretty close. It's perception, the ancient kind of knowingness and wisdom. Essence is spirit, life, force. There's lots of elements in each one of these. Matter or the body, and then energy, all the energy systems that support the body, which include the chakras, the nadis, the meridians, the aura, human spirit access portal, and the halo. And so that's, we're working with all aspects of the blueprint, the human blueprint. So everything that makes us up, we're working with all aspects. And so we're not just the physical body. We're working with everything that makes you human, everything that makes you, has you able to be in an embodiment.
And that, go ahead, Jackie.
I was just going to say it's, and you use a lot of, when you say on a cellular level, talking about like stem cells that you're you're quantifying or you're activating. And I find it interesting that Western medicine now is using stem cells in surgery, in joints and things like that to rejuvenate our own body's healing mechanism there. But you're just doing the same thing in a different mechanical way, right? I mean, you're helping others to do that.
I think we have a better system. I'll tell you why. Because first of all, we're using our own stem cells and our own master cells. Master cells are the stem cells that were with you about 7 to 9 days after you were conceived. So they're the original cells. They stay with you your lifetime. They're the ones that directed the body to grow the glands and organs. They're the master cells. The stem cells are the intelligent cells that are growing new healthy cells. When they're using stem cells, they're harvesting them from, as far as I understand, aborted fetuses. And then they're harvesting and then they're developing them for 6 months in a petri dish. But they're from another body. So they're from your body. So when they introduce those stem cells, you are now introducing dynamics, DNA and dynamics from another gene pool. Basically.
Right.
And although they're harvesting the earliest, best functioning stem cells, there are an endless amount of problems that they haven't really explored yet. But I can tell you, because I was very sick. At one point, they did blood transfusion with me. At another point, they gave me skin tissue. I had a hole in my chest, and they put someone else's cadaver's skin tissue in me. And I have to clear the energy, the bloodline, the DNA from the contributors that are floating around in my body, as well as my own challenges. And so just knowing that anything that you add that's foreign to you is going to introduce good things, I suppose, because you're getting that big boost of stem cells, but it's also going to introduce challenges. And what we do by clearing and then activating, we're activating those cells. We have 200 people who went through a brain study, and we got a 15 to 35% improvement with 1 3-hour activation of the brain. And then they were followed over 6 months. And when you think about that improvement, 15 to 35%, that's really good for 200 in a group. This was not me working one-to-one. This wasn't, oh, Julie, you have the magic. This is, we did it together in a big group, and then we followed them. And their memory improved. And, if you think about doing multiple, where you do it multiple times, where you do it, you wait 6 months, you do it again, I could see that we could get incredible results, like off the chart results.
Wow.
So you're actually, I love that description, because I'm aware of like heart transplant patients getting hearts, and they actually take on a part of that person's personality.
They do. My uncle is the oldest living heart transplant.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Uncle Jim. Yep.
Wow.
But they actually take on part of that person's personality. So I see your correlation in using other stem cells that were pre-programmed and have their own blueprint, and now incorporating those into our bodies. And that could, that's just like throwing two plans, two architects and two different plans of a building and trying to build it.
You're right. You are so right. Now, there was a scientific researcher who did The Secret Life of Plants. I don't know if you ever read him. He was he probably published around 90, a book on the secret life of plants. But it talked about the ability of the cell of a plant being able to communicate with something that's been cut off, that's 400 miles away.
Right.
That's responding.
Quantum.
And I think, well, if that's responding, we don't know all about what's going on in a cell or in the DNA, but there's a lot of stuff going on. We've maybe been able to look under the microscope, but to understand the communication, that's what we've been starting to look at, just starting to explore in our program, in our academy. We've got a class on perception, and we've been defining that broad and narrowband telepathy and many other ways that resonance and how cells communicate, how cells replicate, how that mirroring process. We know about mirroring. We know that if I smile at you, you feel happy. You get kind of a, oh, my cells feel happy. She smiled at me. And that's mirroring. That's the cells. That's the light of the cells receiving the communication of you're safe or you're appreciated. Okay, so you're safe, you're appreciated. We get that. But there's so much that we don't understand yet, or we're just at the precipice of understanding. And I think when you just approach it from a scientific point of view, you're missing some very important elements.
I think Einstein called it spooky entanglement. That's how he described it. But back to that. So your process then is actually working with your blueprint and your DNA in helping you solve that problem, heal that problem. Okay. And something we really haven't talked about, Julie, is working on those blocks. I know you do a lot of work with people in understanding and helping people understand blocking those wealth channels. Maybe we could speak to that a little.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of ways that people can be blocked with wealth, but organically, we want to look at things like bloodline and DNA. And I remember working with a woman years back in St. Louis, and her mother kept her, but she was a child of a rape. So she had a really bad dad who wasn't involved in her life ever. She didn't even know him, but her mom was raped and she gave birth to this lady. And she was always having money issues. And she said, there's part of me that feels kind of diabolical. Like, you think that she's a really good person, but she had this part of her that she wanted to clear. She was like, I can be really diabolical. I don't want to. And, we worked on really clearing that for her so that she could stand in her wealth. And she was a very respected woman in the community, and I'm sure still is. Lovely lady. So we clear that. But also, like in our family, it's so amazing that Adelia and I ended up together, because our family, Adelia's my 3-year-old, who I adopted. In our family, we had a lot of indentured servitude and slavery. And you would think that, but here my family escaped Prussia and oppression in Russia and then Germany, and then had to flee to the United States. And they were the poorest of the poorest of the poor. And both sides, my mother's side and my father's side, had people who were indentured servants, including my father and my grandmother on both sides. And my great-grandmother were sold basically to pay off family debts or put in positions of
servitude,
slavery. My daughter has an ancestry of coming. She's 41% African, and I traced her ancestry back, and she came over she's not my daughter, but her ancestry came over on the slave ships. And so I have this very, very strong, beautiful spirit, but very has a lot of personality.
Wow.
Very cool.
Wow, that is cool.
Those are kinds of things that you have to clear to, like, for me, I had to clear them so I could own this. I'm living in a beautiful estate. I bought a beautiful property on 3 acres in Carmel, California. And to be able to make that big leap of being able to purchase and live in an area where our family isn't in that category.
Energy,
I had to clear a lot of things out of me so that I could do that. And then I think the other thing is the energetic entitlements that come, especially from families. So you feel it like an ownership, like a bundle when you buy a house, and there's a bundle of entitlements like the mortgage and the gas and electric company and the plumbing, whatever. They all have entitlements and access to your property. And in that way, sometimes everybody does have some entitlements from, like, family members or where you live or your religion or whatever that is. So we have to clear those energetic entitlements that suppress us, oppress us, keep us in a box.
And
wow,
it's all in the genes, right, Julie? So it's all so and excuse me. And those are passed down. And we're not even aware that they are a part of our choice-making process? Maybe.
I think they even, it broadcasts out from your field. I think that, are you welcomed with love and received? Or are you kind of like, how do people, I always kind of wondered, I puzzled, because I was a very specialized massage therapist. I helped women at high-risk pregnancy get through their pregnancy and help with the delivery. I had a really high specialization there. But there were people who respected my work clearly, but then treated me like a servant. And I thought, you got to be kidding. But I think it was in my field. I think that there was something in my field that she's here to serve me. And I was there to serve them, but not to be treated like a servant.
Right.
And that was always a puzzle to me when that would happen. I was like, I've got to be broadcasting that, because it wouldn't be that people were being rude or impolite. They were doing what was, their natural thing with someone in this position, or I don't know, but it was something coming off of me, I'm sure, which isn't coming off of me anymore because I've cleared it.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Well, could it be that every experience we have becomes a memory in our cells some way, and perhaps even changes those cells, and so that's passed on through DNA from generation to generation, something like that?
Yeah, I definitely, the DNA, you're asking how does that information about how do we respond in the world, how does that get passed on? And definitely, and there's some things, so there's an energetic field that collects, and why would I still, if my grandparents are still living, why do I have some of the information now that's playing out now? So there's a field that's being collected, and the information is, so interesting. I have to say, I can give you an example of something. I decided to mess with that field, and my family they're all large people. They're big, round people, not tall, round people. And I decided this was not going to be my future. And I went in and I changed my DNA. And I have the gift of seeing, and 4 of my ancestors, female ancestors, showed up and said, "You can't do that." As I was changing my DNA. And they were like, no. And I could see them. They were over here. And it was, my grandma was there, and my great grandma. And they were like, no, you need that. Well, the reason that they had that put in place was because we were very poor. And if you had a lot of weight on you, you could survive scarlet fever or the plague or something if you were really heavy. And that was their health insurance.
Survival mechanism.
And when I said, look, we got good Western medicine, we got good healthcare, we've got good, I'm good and healthy, and I'm going to take really good care of myself. Would you please just watch and observe and allow me to make this transformation? Of course, I was going to make it anyway, but it was really interesting to watch the violent, don't do it. And then convince them. Of course, they do watch, and they're so happy. I see them very happy on a regular basis with all the changes I'm making, which wasn't expected in the family, that there was going to be some revolutionary female come along and just change everything.
Wow. That's pretty amazing, though, that generationally we have so much influence over each other.
Yeah.
And the legacy that we leave in so many ways.
Yeah.
So my question to you, Julie, is how do you begin working with someone? What's the first steps when someone comes to you? What do you start with?
Well, we always start with the brain. So if you're going to work with me on a one-to-one in that miraculous transformation program, ooh, she's moving.
Yes, I'm moving because my battery is dying. So
She's got to plug in.
I got to plug back in here.
I like it. So if somebody's coming to me in the miraculous transformation program, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask some of the details about their life and what are the biggest challenges they're facing right now. I'm going to do a 1-hour clearing, and I'm going to create a special chart just for them. And then from there, we're going to do a brain regeneration. So we start with a big 1-hour clearing and then a brain regeneration. When I work with somebody on brain regeneration, because I'm a magic woman, I can do it pretty fast. I can do the entire brain in about 40 minutes. Some of the people that come to me are very, very sick. They're at death's door. And so I like to give them lots and lots of good attention and the right attention to transform their reality quickly. Then I'm going to likely let them, so 2 hours together the first time, and then I'm likely going to let them rest for 4 or 5 weeks. They're going to be meditating every day with one of my meditations, but life is going to be changing pretty rapidly for them based on how much I changed in the first session. And then we do an hour session once a month for another 3 sessions or 10 sessions, whatever they decide to do. We start out with 5 hours, and we're addressing, I can regenerate 3 different areas in an hour. So we were doing digestion. I could do all of the digestion, so all of the glands and organs involved. Or I could do like the thyroid, I could do a regeneration. I can't guarantee that I can grow things back, but I have grown things back that have been surgically removed from people. So there have been numerous instances where my work has worked so well that something that was surgically removed has grown back. But certainly anything that's failed and still in the body, I can reanimate and grow back and have it get to 100% function again.
Can you make me taller?
Yes. Yes.
You said that.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. We had a gentleman that was 82. He had lost 3 inches. And in the course of a year, we got him 1.25 inches taller in a course of a year.
Wow.
So we can.
And youth,
that's amazing.
Jackie.
And youth. Yeah, okay. I can be younger
even
too.
Though you are youthful.
Yeah, I'm
Wow.
62. I adopted my daughter at 58, and I'm in the process. I'd like to adopt a couple more kids. I'm in great health. There's evidence, even with all the dysfunction, and they didn't know any of this quantum field stuff. My relatives, 99, my grandmother lived to 99, Adelia, who I named my daughter after, distant relatives, 107, 109. I think that we need to be looking at a different kind of longevity. I think the reason that we have so much brain that we're not using yet is because our bodies were set up to live 700 years. And some things have gone very wrong for that right now. There's a belief system that we don't want to get old and decrepit, and so we don't imagine living hundreds of years. So we don't want to be an old person for hundreds of years.
Well, when I did my research, Julie, and I heard you make those statements, that's where my mind brought me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do want to live to be 1,000.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I've asked other friends and people that I've worked with, and they're like, "Oh, no way. I don't want to live that long. I don't want to." So then the question comes to my mind, well, is it that you don't want to be old and decrepit, or do you really want to stop your life for another reason? And it just fascinates me. I know that's a huge train of thought, and you probably don't have the answer for that, but go ahead.
I think we're going through a group depression. And I think that people are sad, and they don't have an idea that they're helpful or they can contribute. I think that people are lost in social media and the news, and they have lost themselves. And when you retrain, if we train children in school to imagine what you would contribute in the first 50 years of your life, the first 70, the first 100, the first 150, the first 200 years of your life. If we could get that started early in childhood and have them thinking, what am I going for? And then we could honor them and cherish them and say, you can do this, and then grow with their ideas and grow with anyone's ideas, your ideas and your ideas, and our listeners' ideas. I think that we don't have that. We matter. We don't have a framework that we matter, and that staying here makes a difference. I know when I was introduced to that concept many years ago, 20 years ago, from Landmark Education. They went through an exercise where you just imagined 150 years, 175 years, and something just broke in me. And I was like, oh yeah, this has opened up this world of course. So whatever constriction I was in, where I believed that I had to die around the time my grandma died, around 100, and then it blew the glass ceiling off, and I could start thinking about what I could do in the world if I were here that long, and how I could follow through. And the truth is, you just have to start all over again. If you die, you leave your body. Listen, from someone who knows, you're going to reincarnate very likely again. You're going to have to start from the baby body. You're going to have to struggle and fall down and cry and go through all your stuff to get to a place maybe in your 40s or 50s where you remember more of who you are, hopefully, and can still take action. Hopefully you have enough good chemistry in your body that you're able to follow through. And that's why it takes so long for us as spirits to progress into these higher levels of enlightenment and awakened being, because our lives are so short. Our lives are supposed to be long.
Right. So it's your contention that our belief system and what we believe also has an effect on, I have to take it to that level, our DNA and our DNA's ability to replicate correctly?
That could be. That's entirely possible. Yeah. I mean, if you think about, we have aging programs going on in our body that we weren't gifted those aging programs.
Yeah, that blows me away. And I know you've stated, there's no reason that we can't live to be 200 years old because it's in our human blueprint. So
it's in our blueprint. Yeah, it's in our design.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, and Julie, you certainly were exposed to so many chemicals and poisons at a very young age. And so have you been able to clear those out of your DNA and rejuvenated entirely new cells so that you no longer have those poisons in your system?
As far as I know, I took our whole academy through an energetic detox. I needed to do 13 hours, and I did that last year. Yes, so I think so. I can say yes.
Wow.
I keep working on one of the big things. It's kind of a long term, like it might take me 20 years, but I keep working on what are the mechanisms that cause degeneration and aging? Because I think that people are living in a level of frenetic stress with the social media, the bombardment of news, the movies, all the things that are coming at people, that there's a level of stress where we're not in the regenerative system. We're not living in nature. We're not swimming in the ocean every day with the dolphins. And we're not doing that.
I could do that for 1,000 years, though.
And I think that that's part of the secret of the Fountain of Youth, is to have the systems, the regenerative system, the parasympathetic system, operational, functional. That the only time the sympathetic system would kick in is if your life were in danger. If somebody were going to run over you with a car and you jumped out of the way, sympathetic system kicks in. But sympathetic system is on all day long, every beep, every buzzer, everything that you hear, driving in traffic, horns and honks and jackhammers, and it keeps the sympathetic system on all the time, which then shuts off the regenerative system. Yeah. And so there are a couple other things too. I was thinking about waves, transmissions, frequencies, the things that are broadcast in, and we've been working on how do we unplug so that we're not at the effect, because we've found 150 things being broadcast by governments and scientific laboratories that are affecting us, that are causing this suppression, oppression. Sometimes people go through 3 or 4 weeks of feeling moody, and then you find out that the whole planet is feeling moody. It's because they're experimenting. They're experimenting now with waves, transmissions, and frequencies. How does this affect humanity? And getting out of all of that, getting into, I don't know, going on to a beautiful island of serenity.
Yeah.
Because I know that we have the capacity to live hundreds of years, and I know we're meant to, and I know there's evidence that we have in ancient times, but we're not doing the right things. Like crazy. They're DNA splicing in Stanford. They're splicing mortgage or land ownership documents into people's DNA.
Wow.
So that it stays longer. Oh, I promise you, it made the news. It was in the Business Times. And you think about all the crazy stuff, and then introducing other people's DNA, all the things that they're doing are not the things that cause longevity, are not the things that cause full self-expression. And even it's like we're in a time, we're not in the worst time. The Dark Ages were much worse than it is now. But because we're barraged with, I don't watch the news. I don't participate. But just on a daily basis, you got this news feed running, and there's all this frenetic.
Yeah.
I think that why is the earth so bad? It's because they're finding the media is just preying on keep the sympathetic system going. I don't know if they even know that what they're doing, but they're like keep that thrill factor and the terror factor going.
Right.
Well, there's a huge exposure to just with what you were talking about, Julie. I mean, we're exposed to huge quantities of Wi-Fi signals and Bluetooth and radio and cell phone, and there's all of these things that we can't see, but they have a direct effect on our bodies, our cells ability to regenerate, and
we may never know the effect that they're actually having for years to come, and then we're going to be going, duh, why did I do all that?
Yeah, I know. Somebody was asking me about nuclear radiation, and they did bomb testing in the Nevada desert from 46 to 76 as public record, and then they stopped when they realized that they were killing a lot of their population and whatever. But I think we're doing the same thing, or we are, whatever. I don't want to blame anyone, but with all the waves, transmissions, and frequencies, everything that's being supported right now is the same thing again. We're overloading our nervous system. If you overload the nervous system, it cannot grow younger. It can't. Right. It's just impossible. And so things have got to change. And we're in our classes experimenting on how do we have our body not receive those waves, transmissions, and frequencies? Are there things we can do? And we've taken lots of steps. I don't know if we're entirely effective yet because it's a new thing that we're exploring. We've been exploring for about 6 months. But with the advent of 5G and, all the death of animals and birds and things, we're thinking this is something that's got to be affecting the whole quest of growing younger, living longer, having the excitement and the joy in the body to do something magnificent.
Wow.
Oh my goodness, ladies, we just have about 5 minutes left. And Julie, it's just fascinating. I hope you'd be open to coming back on the show, because I think there is a whole host of other things that we could have a discussion about. I
would love to do that. That would be lots of fun. Really lots.
Is there anything that we're missing? We talked about a lot of things. I'm reminded by Enoch and Noah. They lived to be 700 and 900 years old.
Exactly.
And, there's certain documentation. And oh my gosh, you just have my brain reeling.
I'm glad. I am so glad.
Yeah.
Because before I went on the show, I've got this whiteboard up here. You can't really see it, but it's like restoring hope and restoring the knowledge of the miraculous system to humanity. And we're doing that right here, right now. We're reawakening that idea of a long life of contribution and joy, where, maybe it's going to take another 20, 30, 50 years to get out of this
planting the seeds.
We're in. But if we just hang in there and keep moving forward. Yeah.
And is there anybody else besides you doing this, Julie? Are you are you on the cutting edge and the one in charge leading us all toward this new perspective and knowledge?
Well, I get all of my information direct from the divine sources. So I'm not training with anybody or getting this information from anywhere other than the divine. We're working with angels. We've got over 7,000 angels that show up in our trainings to support the journey. So I think all of the information I've been sharing with you is organically from me. It was one thing Marcy had said to me. She said, "You're amazing. Most people gather information from others. I gather it from source."
So you have classes, and people can find more about Julie at julierenee.com and entice us a little bit to explore your classes. I believe they're like 18 months long. Is that right?
Oh, no, actually, classes are more like a year. And I've shifted from you have to fly to see me to everything's online, live stream. I changed my life a little bit so that I'm able to take care of some children who are in need. It's a wonderful Quantum Activations Academy. Like today we have Gorgeous Goddess. Tomorrow we are teaching technology tune-up. We're going to be clearing technology addiction, obsession, compulsion, and then all things that interfere with technology. And let's see, we're doing a joint class. It's called Spring into Life on Thursday. And really reversing any joint damage, restoring the joints to good health. We have Year of Miracles. That's a year long. We regenerate the entire body in Year of Miracles. Wow. So it's a fantastic program. And, I want to just encourage you, if you just come to julierenee.com/quiet mind, you get a meditation, you get to read a little bit about cell regeneration, and you get started.
Wow.
You know what I really get from you, Julie?
What's that?
That you really dig what you're doing.
Oh my God, I do. I do. I've dated a few fellows and they're like halfway retired. And I say, well, I have no plans of retirement. I think they all run. They're just totally terrified. I'm never retiring. I love this. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, you're forever young. Why would you ever want to retire?
Exactly.
Thank you so much for being on the show today. And I'm glad you're open to coming back on, because I think it'd be really cool. And thanks to Jackie. Jackie puts out a newsletter every week and lets us know who's coming up and who's been on the show, and a blog post. So she's going to blog post about Julie today, and I know she's got some really good stuff to say.
Absolutely.
That's about all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Tell your friends about it. Tell your friends about the content. Tell your friends about Jackie's amazing story and Julie's amazing story. And lastly, I would really like for you to have a great day, because it's all about choice, and you choose what you want to do. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everybody.